welcome to the first part of a dive into ACOTAR Series. Now, I have technically a first part already called Before the Dive. This is the first part in the actual dive. We're going to be looking at Chapter 1 specifically into this book. Now, I'm not planning on making it only a chapter by chapter thing. I just think Chapter 1 is very important for the fourth book in a series. I think it sets the tone for the series specifically and where the character is starting at. So because of that, I think it's very important for us to look at the first chapter of the story as a whole, right? So I do not plan on spoiling things in the future just as we are going through this book and the other books. So if I say something, and if you're like, oh, well, no, see, it gets explained in chapter 3 of the fourth book, in Nessa's book. Yes, probably. I'm not doubting that. But we'll try to read it as and analyze it as the story was intended to. So once we get to that point, then we can be like, hey, remember this? Remember when this was happening? Because I think that is going to be the best chance I can to give these characters a fresh new start. Is if we look at it as things are going. So I plan on doing it every 5 or 10 chapters, depending on how I feel, honestly. Or specifically every 100 every 100 pages. It's not yet decided. I want to have smaller chunks that we are analyzing instead of just the huge book as a whole, because I feel like if we only analyze this as like a whole, it might be easier to accidentally overlook something. Now, that being said, I am human. There are things I'm not gonna like notice, especially since I have not read this since high school. So it's going to happen. But I want to do the best I possibly can, and this is just the way I can conceive of a way in which I am not bringing my past knowledge into things. If it's like, no, we can only analyze what we have. So I hope that explained how we're going to do it. Potentially a video a week. Potentially, I'm not very sure. We'll see how it goes. I'm not settling for a specific time frame at the moment. I have a whole list of questions that you can see in a post, but you can also go to Before the Dive and it will do inspos of the series, and also it will explain all the questions that I have. I did add one, so there was also that. So if you want like the introduction to the series, it's going to be over there. It should be the first video in the playlist that this is on. Okie dokie. I actually read the full chapter of this on live on TikTok. So some people already know my false reactions in like, wait, what moments of chapter 1, and I also posted already my notes for chapter 1. I did it twice because the first one I didn't really like. I didn't think it was pretty, and now this one, I at first thought it was pretty, and now I'm looking at it. It gets your job done. It gets your job done. So if you want more daily updates, TikTok or Instagram. Let's actually get into this dive now. Okay, so where we start off, our main character, or our point of view character, her name is Feyre, and she is in the forest hunting. And that's all I'm going to give you because we're going to talk about it now. So if there, again, is anything that you are confused about, that is because either it's not in my notes or she has not mentioned it. She meaning Feyre, not the author. So Feyre has not mentioned it in this series yet. Okay, so as I was reading this, a new question has entered the villa. Is Feyre a bad hunter? I have multiple points where I think she's a bad hunter, and I did not see that coming, and yet here we are. I don't think she is. And I understand that is coming from someone who was raised by a hunter. My dad is a hunter. I had deer and elk all the time, or a lot growing up. Um, and I have uh, gone into where they were keeping it cold to go find my dad. So I have seen, I've seen the deal. Oof, okay. A little bit traumatic. So, page 1. Art Greeley, she's in the forest. Yay. And she's hunting, but she's really cold. Winter is here, and yet she has no preparations for winter. A reason why I think she might not be the best hunter, because she has nothing prepared for it. But that being said, she is poor. And a lot of times, poor people cannot, speaking from experience, cannot have this food stocks and stuff like that prepared because you're consuming it, right? You don't have a lot of space usually to keep a whole bunch of food, especially if there's a big family. So I can see if that is the argument here. So Feyre talks about uh, how she's going farther into the woods than she would normally risk, but then she talks about the deer migration pattern. So it is the deer, once they move out of, don't have any more food, they're going to go into wolf territory, and then they're going to go into Prithian, fairy territory. You're like, fairies? What? I didn't know there was fairies in this book series. Surprise! There's fairies in this book series. She's not a fairy. She's a human. So I believe that she's not in wolf territory because later on in the chapter she says she has not seen a wolf before, so she's not there yet, right? Um, she has been picking off the stragglers, right, who have not yet moved on, and I'm just like, do we not have a stockpile, or not, maybe not a stockpile, but like a contingency plan for winter? Did no one prepare for winter? But as I'm reading this, she is alone, she's cold, she's hungry, and I just have a thought come into my head, which is she alone? Because there's no other hunters, or is she alone because she chose not to have a community for some sort of reason, right? Why is she, for all intents and purposes, a lone wolf here? Um, in page 2, or on page 2, we have will mention something that to me is signaling I think she's only getting small game, which just getting small game does not mean that someone's a bad hunter. Um, this just indicates to me that if she's only bringing home small game, I don't think that she might be the primary breadwinner of this family, even though she might be thinking she is. Um, because she says she focuses week by week on page 2. And this could just mean like mentally or something like that. Maybe not food wise, since it is talking about hunting. I'm going to assume this focus week by week is specifically on food because she's thinking about food, right? Um, so if what she was bringing back can only sustain them for a week, then is that only is that okay? Does that mean she's only bringing back food for 1 week for 4 people? I do not think a deal would only last a week. Because my dad hunted deal with the bow and arrow, all that. I went into that. I've seen how much meat a deal has. So I can't see that a deal can only last 4 people a week, right? So if it's week by week, I'm thinking she's hunting small game. Um, Now, that's the thing with the hunters, right? Because I'm going to stay on page 2 for a bit. She does talk about how other hunters are talking about how big wolves are getting closer. And so that doesn't mean she's not alone. So why is she not with them? Why does she isolate herself from having this community? Does she view them as beneath her? That will come into it. That is a question that I am wondering. Like, what is the reason why she refuses to have community? Is it because something happened? Right? She doesn't want to be with those hunters because they did something, they gave her the ick? Or what reason? Because I cannot see people probably letting an 11-year-old go into the forest by themselves. And she also, that's on chapter 2, I won't say that. Because I'm on um, page 12. But I just cannot see hunters doing that or people letting that happen. An 11-year-old. Especially like if they came when she was 11 into this town and she immediately started hunting. And she says that she is a decent shot and she mostly gets the things she is trying to hunt for. Back to the hunters. I can't see an 11-year-old who has not hunted, presumably, before this, immediately picking up the trade. So, who taught her how to do it? Are we to believe that she learned how to hunt so well on her own? That does not make sense for the weapon she is doing. So she would have had to taught herself how to pick up a bow and arrow, taught herself how to properly take care of it, how to hunt, how to do all the stuff all on her own. Katniss was still taught, right? She still had someone that. Why am I bringing up Katniss is because she is a hunter that also, you know, uh, hunted for her family. So I dropped my pen. It's okay. But this is indicating to me, okay, so she does not have a community, but how does she know the things that she knows? Right? That is confusing. But if there is other hunters in the area, it would make sense that the pelt she was bringing in, if it is small game and local animals, then they would already have an abundance of those pelts, so they would not have uh, a need to pay her as much. Um, Capitalism, I think, is a villain of the story. I think it is. I think the lack of community is ultimately the thing that is going to be the message of this story from what I'm getting of this first chapter. Because we are seeing someone struggle alone. She is a lone wolf. She is not receiving help from anyone. But I'm also not seeing her reaching out for help either. So we're having someone be boo-hoo because no one's helping her. But she is also not asking for help. She's also not reaching for help. There are other hunters here. Why is she not with them? Yes, something bad could have happened with these hunters and her. We are not told if that is happening right now. Um, but somehow these hunters get the word to her, or maybe just to the village, unsure, and again, unsure on how she learned how to, if she made the bow and arrow, did she do that? Did she buy it? If so, how did she buy it? Is it with the last remnants of the money that they did have? What is happening here? How does supposed to know how to do it from a young age but does not have community? Right? Because you presumably would run into someone eventually hunting for 8 years. Especially if someone sees a child. Actually, there are fairies. Actually, there are fairies in this world. So maybe they can think it's a fairy shop, but if you see them in your village, like this is presumably a small old town or a small old village. Later, same in page 2, we get a mention, again from the hunters and from other people coming in, that there are strange folk by the wall and in the forest. Strange folk meaning fairies. So there are fairies that keep on looking at them. Now, either this is a plot hole or it's foreshadow. One of the two. But we're not going to get a resolution on that for a while. Why am I bringing it up? Is because it's in page 2, so we should see something with it. Like it's something to like keep a note on those strange folk by the walls and in the forest. And not only that, but there were also mentions of attacks against villages by the wall. Now, village elders are saying that it's hearsay and dismissing it. Now, I wonder if it is, are they actually being dismissive or are they like, okay, well, we have no proof? Are we keeping the people from going out and potentially being killed because of this rumor against people that potentially are just trying to sell you something, like protections, that may or may not be real? Like, we don't get to see why or what is the circumstances that they are saying it's hearsay, right? Because we are just like there's whispers of strange folk, right? Uh, Presumably fairies, right? The hunters did say there are big wolves getting closer. Then they'll, but will not. They didn't say it to us. She was recalling it. She was recalling whispers of strange folk in the forest and by the wall. She was recalling people mention that there are attacks against villages, again by the wall, and she was recalling that the elder was saying it's hearsay. We're not actually seeing any of this evidence. We're not seeing why the elders might be saying it. Maybe it is hearsay. He said, she said, right? And if that is the case, then they're not wrong. That just means that they aren't wanting you to go and attack um, these fairies that may or may not be a bad idea, right? So maybe that's what it is, in which it's like, well, we don't want to attack if there's no evidence. Because what if there is what if this is not happening? Then we attacked with no evidence. We attacked, and we are the people that are going to get the short end of the stick because we listened to people without having evidence. What if that is what this is? We don't get that because she is just recalling it and saying, well, they're dismissing the concerns and they said it was hearsay. Is this at a town hall? Is this whole talking to them and whole being told this directly from them? We don't know. Um, so that is also happening on page 2. I'm going to skip over things that happen in page 3 with a tracker as well, because I want to get back to this um, main thing on the hunting. So hunting, she's recalling these things, right? She sees a doe, and she's like, "You're mine, you're mine," in my tum tum, right? But practically, well, not practically, like it. She's thinking and salivating at the thought of having. So like she's like in my tum tum, basically, right? Problem, she sees this deal. She's about to, hunt, so to speak. And then this big wolf the size of a pony. Page 4. The size of a pony comes into view. Now, it is a silver wolf that she says. It's a silver wolf and there is snow, which means this wolf is probably very incredibly hard to see, but it does have yellow eyes. She's like, this wolf is not acting how it should. Nothing. This wolf is not the correct size. She is thinking that it is either from Prithian as like a beast there, maybe a fairy, but that's scary to her. So she's like, this is a wolf from Prithian. This is just a wolf. This is just a wolf. And she then realizes that this wolf, the size of a pony, is going to attack the doe she wants to eat and her family to eat. And when the wolf bites in to the doe, that's when she takes her shot. It goes into the wolf's eye. And I think this is just a way to be like, oh my gosh, she's such a good shot because it went into the wolf's eye. This to me is one of the reasons I don't think she's a good hunter. Not that she killed this wolf with a shot to the eye, but because of what she's going to do next. Page 7. No, we're going to go back. Still to page 7. So, this wolf, she is walking up to it. She is using also a special arrow. She has 3 arrows, very important. She shoots and kills it. No, she shoots it. It is still alive. With an ash arrow. We're going to pretend like this is our ash arrow. Now, it is thicker and heavier, and she got it. She recalls about it on page 5. We're going to come back to that later. So she got this ash. She has this ash arrow, and she's told that it's supposed to kill Fey. So she uses this arrow, specifically an ash arrow, to go and shoots it through the eye. Very important here, right? So she's creeping up to this wolf. This wolf is in pain and suffering. It is whimpering. It is pawing at the ground. It is important to mention that this wolf kind of seemed like it saw her and knew that she was there and let her do it, but we're going to get to that later, not in this part. But like, so that's also not important if it was a sacrifice or if it was not a sacrifice. What I'm getting at is this animal is in front of her, whimpering in clear agony, pawing at the ground, and she watches it die. She does not mercy kill this animal, which so many people will say if a deer runs and hits your car in your window shit or something like that, you are supposed to mercy the animal. That is the humane thing to do. If an animal is not in the wild, you are supposed to mercy the animal. So how is that? She is a hunter, and she does not do that. So to me, this is a very cool thing that if, let's say, maybe some great hunters out there would be like, actually, I don't mercy my animals. But like they're a great shot and they're a good hunter, then that is cruel. Then that is not humane. Then you are a bad person. If you are watching this animal paw at the ground and whimper in pain, and you watch it die a slow death. Oh, but it was a matter of seconds. We don't know for one if it was a matter of seconds. Presumably it was. It does not matter. It was in clear pain, whimpering on the ground, pawing at the ground, and she did nothing, making her a bad person. This is on page 7 of my copy that I have here. This is specifically why I will say I believe that Feyre is a bad person. In chapter 1, page 7, you are supposed to, as a reader, view her as a bad person because she watches this animal die in pain and agony. Well, it was a fairy. It was this. It was that. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. It's just an animal. It doesn't matter. She is okay. In page 7, chapter 1 of this book, of an animal being in pain, meaning, well, further on in this and that, like she's just being blah, blah, blah. In page 7 of the first book, she watches an animal die in pain and agony when she could have mercied it. And she chose not to. She's a bad person. Here is why, primarily, I think she is a bad hunter. Now, she's thinking, right? So she's looking at this deal, it's dead. Next, because of the wolf. This wolf is in good condition. The only thing wrong with it is, well, I mean, the teeth, but like, okay, yeah. But is the eye. She's like, I can't carry both of them. And she makes a decision on which animal she's going to bring back so they can eat. Feyre chooses the deal and to skin the wolf. Page 7 of my copy. She's a bad hunter. Who in their right mind? She does not say she cannot carry the wolf back. So she has to choose a deal. It is either or. Which one am I choosing? And she chooses a deal that's throat was ripped up by a wolf. And she mentions how the wolf's teeth do not look that good. So she just skins it and brings it back. Sells the pelt. You know, wrong decision. In the very end of the chapter, she thinks about how she's like, I wish I can feel like remorse for this animal that she skinned and left there. And oh my gosh, okay, Aaron Yeagle. Oh my gosh, this world is a cruel place. Basically, this forest is a cruel place. Is what it is, and it's just like, okay, I'm gonna say something here. I think Aaron would have chose the wolf. I mean, like, at least we can. This world is a cruel place. Also, Aaron, that's where we'll go. Oh my gosh, we have decided because of this, or at least I've decided that she is a bad person because she didn't want to see this at all. And if we're drawing connections to Aaron Yeagle, who a boy, all that kind of stuff, he grows into what he is. Villain origin story for Feyre. Okay, so that's all I have on this, like, is she a bad hunter type thing. I'm going to now get into a main thought she has about her sisters. I view this as a mean thought. I'm going to say it. I do. I'm going to explain why I think it's a mean thought. And if you're like, why are we focusing on this mean thought? Well, we have little tracker going. And I'm saying that this is at least a mean thought. We have some where it's like, we'll see if it is. Or if it's not later on. But, okay. So, she has mean thoughts about her sister directly after she thinks of her dream life. This is very important because our main character on page 3 of the story, we're going all the way back to page 3, right? Envisions her perfect dream life. Why is this important? I've been to enough therapy before. Other people might here have as well, which is sometimes what is asked of you is if you can wave a magic wand, and everything in your life is perfect, what would it look like? Everything gone, everything negative, magic fixed. Voila! What would it look like? That is basically what she does. She's waving a magic wand in her mind, and this is her perfect life that she can imagine at this moment. Right? So, okay, we'll look at it because in theory, this is at the moment. Obviously, it can change. What this character says she wants to be for Endgame. Alright, quote. Sometimes I would indulge in, sorry, sometimes I would, restart, quote. Sometimes I would even indulge in envisioning a day when my sisters were married and it was only me and father, with enough food to go around, enough money to buy some paint, and enough time to put those colors and shapes down on paper or canvas or the cottage walls. Not likely to happen anytime soon, perhaps ever. End quote. This is on page 3 of ACOTAR. So book 1. Okay, so a few things are jumping out at me, right? And the perhaps never, but perhaps ever, right? That is the main thought about both sisters. Why? We're going to jump right back to it. So she's saying, she's telling us the indulgence of her daydream. Step 1, her sisters have to get married. So if this is not going to happen, is that because her sisters will not get married? Why does she think that her sisters, one, need to be married? And two, why does she think that that would never happen? Is it because she doesn't think her sisters will get married? And that means that they are undesirable to be married? Does she think that? Is it just she's viewing them in a negative way? That is why I'm including it. Um, why? Maybe it's because the first problem in this that she sees is her sisters must be gone. Misogyny, potential alert here. Why is it that her sisters must be married for her to be happy? Why is it that her sisters must not be around her? This is assuming, especially with enough food, enough money, that would assume that Feyre is the breadwinner. Is she? Is she actually, though? In her mind, she believes she is. But again, it's a small game. I cannot see her being the breadwinner of this family. But for step 1, sisters have to be married off. Does that mean, in her mind, her sisters have to be someone else's problem? So does she view her sisters as a problem? That's me. That's me. Even if they are a problem, whatever, that's me, right? But is it that it has to be someone else's responsibility to take care of them? They have to be someone else's responsibility, someone else's problem, therefore shackled to another person. In this society, it looks like it's other men. So it has to be a man's problem, not her problem anymore. See, having this be the first thing, and act like you're focusing on this first, that's because it's step 1. Again, magic wand, do, sizzle's gone. Not just gone though, married off. She's not saying, in my perfect world, my sisters would financially contribute to what is happening. She's not saying that here. She wants them married off. She wants them out. Not just gone, but she wants them to be someone else's responsibility. So that also means she does not view her sisters as being able to take care of themselves. Is that true, or is that just how she's viewing them? Right? Uh, only me and father. So in this world, in this world of do, her sisters get married. We don't know if her sisters want to get married at this point, right? So it is, I don't care if they want to get married in my perfect fantasy, they will be married. And even though I'm forcing them in this fantasy to be married off, I am not going to be married off. I'm going to have my freedom of whatever I'm envisioning for myself, and I'm going to then take care of my father. So it's still keeping her father in a um, kind of like inverted, like her father's not taking care of her, she's taking care of her father, right? So he has no agency here. The only person with agency in this fantasy is Feyre. Her sister's married off, they're gone. Someone else's problem. It's not they have enough money to go live on their own. It's not they are bringing in things to help in this. It's not her dad is able to um, do as he wills, right? To contribute in a way that he needs or wants to. It's not that. It is Feyre only gets to have agency here, right? Okay, so enough food to go around. That perfectly reasonable. Like I have no commentary on that. That's like okay, so enough food, yeah. Enough money to buy some paint. Okay, a thought that I have is, could she have, instead of investing so much money into hunting, could she have invested all this money and time into painting and selling the paint, and selling paintings? Which one could have been more lucrative, y'all? Right? Uh, because if it is a matter of, because even she mentions it later on, that paint is a luxury good. So paintings are a luxury good. We can agree on that. So if she is selling luxury goods like pelts um, to get extra money, if she starts selling luxury goods, potentially even she's going into the woods and she's making paint of her own and selling that, right? She's not doing that. Could that be a potential that she could be doing? Sure, she could be doing that, but she's not, right? So I'm just pointing out other ways in which she potentially could have been selling luxury goods, right? If she knew how to make paint, people would be like, oh, paint is a luxury good, I want that, right? If that is more in demand. And it might be like, well, she's not getting any meat out of it. Okay, but if it's more lucrative to be doing this, then she can just buy the meat instead of needing to hunt for it. There was no mention of trading here. So it's not even, I'm going to trade you this paint for this deal, right? Um, so enough paint, and enough food, and enough time to actually paint, right? So she's inspired, she's a starving artist that's not actually doing art. Um, unfortunately. And then not likely to happen anytime soon. Why not? Why can't it not happen anytime soon? What is this limiting belief in this manifestation in which this cannot happen? Right? Perhaps several. Why? Why is it that this will never happen? Right? And the only thing out of this, because if we're looking at it like step by step, right? The problem is with sisters. And that doesn't even have anything to do with potentially like that we can see here. Like maybe if her sisters got married, they would marry into wealth, and then the wealth would like I don't know help her. Like her in-laws might help her a little bit more. Like that's not even to mention here. So dreams specifically, right? So if we're boiling it down, is she wants to paint and hunt less, or not to hunt. Where am I getting that from? Nowhere in this does she say she wants to hunt. Nowhere in this enough food, and money. So presumably she would hunt. She's not mentioning it specifically. She's not saying where this money is coming from. She's not saying this money is coming from a marriage for a dowry or whatever it is in this land and in this culture. She's not saying how the money is coming. That there was going to be money coming, right? And enough time. Enough time does that mean she's not going to be hunting that much? That means it would be reduced. So she wants to paint and hunt less. And her sisters would be someone else's problem. She doesn't say that. I'm inferring that from what we are getting here. Uh, so, presumably, with this, that would mean her end game at this point is paint, no hunt, or hunt less. Sisters, not her problem. Someone else's. Presumably a man. Unless they marry another woman. Um, or someone, right? Um, Now let's move away from this dream, but also still to this dream, I suppose. So when it was summer few summers back, that's when she gets this ash arrow, and it's one person who's coming through. She like theorizes if this is a real ash wood or not. If she got scammed, um, and she's like, well, prove its lethality. um, when she had a few extra couples during the summer. So summer is when times are good, at least that was shown in this first chapter. And that would make sense. Interesting it's not spring, because sometimes the rain will make animals come out, but like, that was chapter 1. I hope you have enjoyed it. Um, Since I have so much for just chapter 1 here, you can see why I might want to be sectioning them off as much as I possibly can. Um, like I said, this is not plan on being a recap. We'll analyze it here as much as I possibly can. So, I hope you have enjoyed this, and goodbye.